guys, thanks for joining us again on FaithWorks Designs. I'm Faith, and today we're going to be looking at how to put your sandwich together for your quilt. Now, a friend of mine wanted a sandwich quilt of her son's jersey shirt. So we had some fronts and we had some backs. And instead of wanting to waste all of the backs of the shirts, what I decided to do was take the backs of the shirts for the back of the quilt and the front of the shirts for the front of the quilt. That way he had both of them. Some of them had numbers on the back, or some of them had some wording or something they wanted to say. So I put the back together, which you can probably see in the video shortly. That is going to be the bottom of our quilt. Now you can also just use regular muslin. That's normally what they would use, is muslin on the back of quilts. Or you could have just a regular piece of cotton on the back. It's really up to you what you want to do. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to use an everyday item to be able to help you quilt your quilts even better. Now, not all of us have long arm quilting machines, and I wish one of these days maybe I'll get one. But that day is not today. So until then, I have my wooden floors downstairs. And once you have that all laid out, what I do is go from one end of the quilt and tape it down with painter's tape. Grab your painter's tape. Start taping down one side, and then when you get down to the other side, you're going to want to pull it a little taut. Not too hard that you rip the tape up, but just enough so that it's flat. Then what you're going to do is go to the opposite side that you haven't taped yet. Go ahead and tape that, and then go on the opposite other side. Now, I learned this tip from my dad, and he's a carpet installer. And so you go from one side of the room to the other, the direct other side. Then you go to the adjacent wall, and then the direct wall of the other side. And that way it's nice and taut and it's all flat. Now, why is this important? One, when you go to sandwich your quilt and everything, you want to make sure that that back is nice and tight. Because if it's not and you go to quilt it, you're going to end up with bumps and bubbles all over the place. And it's not going to look really good on the back of your quilt. So that's why I use painter's tape, to be able to make sure that everything stays nice and flat. Now you say, Faith, I don't have a lot of floor space, I can't do the painter's tape. Well, if you have a kitchen table, Lowe's or other home improvement stores have those little clamps that they have for like wood pieces. You can get those little clamps, clamp it to one side of your table, and then clamp it on the other side of your table so that you can get it at least nice and flat. Now, the next part is to get your batting. What I normally do is make my batting just a teensy tiny bit bigger than the bottom of my fabric, just so I can see the bottom of the fabric, but it needs to overlap a little bit. So if when I'm quilting the top stretches any, I'll still have enough batting there to cover everything. So whatever your top is, just add like an inch on every side. Then we're going to be putting down the top. Now, I came up with the bright idea that I wanted to have the tops of the shirt on the top of the quilt and the backs of the shirt on the back of the quilt. Easy, right? Well, now comes the task of having to line those up and making sure that the front and the back are at the same exact spot while I'm laying it out. Now, the first thing that I did was, you can probably see me doing it, is feeling with my fingers where the seams are on every corner. And I started in the middle and then kind of worked my way out. Normally what I would do is just pin like crazy so that everything doesn't move or shift around so that it's not done. So what I did was I started towards myself and then kind of moved over. What I would typically normally do is turn around and work away, but I didn't want, constant shots of my butt. So I went ahead and just kept moving forward. And then as you pin, you just start with every row, every seam that you have, you go through and just kind of feel around with your fingers and make sure that they're all lining up. Now, if you have a plain muslin or a plain piece of cotton underneath there, you don't need to do all of this. The simple thing that you need to do is just, it's already taut. All you need to do is where the seams are, just kind of pin it wherever. The more pinning you do, the better your outcome chances are it's going to be. If you're just kind of willy-nilly just putting a pin here and there, you're still liable to have a few bumps. So just take your hands and just kind of smooth it out and then pin. You can also use safety pins. I use my everyday pins, and that's fine. Just be careful if you're taking your hand to smooth out the fabric, make sure that you don't accidentally slice your hand across a couple of pins. Done that a couple of times, it's really painful. So you can use regular safety pins for this project. And I just find that they're a little more annoying when I'm in the middle of quilting and I have to stop and undo it, so I just use my regular pins. Every now and then, I have a little helper that likes to join me, and you probably see them in the corner of the viewfinder. They like to help and check out and see what Mama's doing. Now we've got everything all pinned together and all ready to go. Now what I do is I remove all the painter's tape from around the quilt edge, and then you have your sandwich all ready to go. Hope you guys like that video. The next video coming is going to be how we're going to square our quilt up, and then how we're going to actually quilt it, and that's going to be a whole nother quilt to show you guys, because we're in Christmas time rush, which, yay, Christmas. Anyway, I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, you can give it a thumbs up. If you want to see the next couple of videos that are coming along for quilts, you can just subscribe down below. Or if you hit the bell icon, YouTube will let you know when I'm next uploaded. If you have any comments or questions, you can just leave them in the comment section down below, and when I get a chance, I'll get right to those. Thank you guys again for joining FaithWorks Designs. Bye. Topping of our quilts for this. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to use a simple homemade home tool. If you guys have any questions about the long arm quilting, that's what I meant to say.